everybody, and welcome to another ASMR video here on the channel. Tonight we are back with a nice, long, and hopefully relaxing video on random facts. We're going to be aiming for 1 hour to hopefully maximise your chance of relaxing and getting some sleep, and hopefully you learn something new as well, as is always the aim here. So I'm not gonna waffle on too much with a long intro, but before we do get into the facts, I've got a quick message about the paid partner of today's video. If you guys are anything like me, then you turn to ASMR for one primary reason: getting to sleep is hard. And obviously we all know ASMR is amazing. It is an incredible soft reset for my mind, but there are some nights where I still find myself battling my own brain simply to just get some sleep. And one thing that's made a huge difference for me is Better Sleep, today's paid partner. Better Sleep is one of the world's top rated sleep apps that can help you fall asleep faster. Now, I obviously listen to ASMR most nights, but there are some nights that rather than speech, I just want sounds. Better Sleep has over 300 sounds for you to customize and fall asleep to. Now, I don't think this is gonna come out very well on camera, but I've got the Better Sleep app loaded up here. Is that gonna focus? Maybe, but here you can see all the various sounds that you can use and customize. There's ASMR, there's water, white noise, breaks down by popular. Also, you can favourite those sounds that you use frequently and want to go back to. So I favorited foam, ocean, birds, campfire. Let's get a bit of foam going. Sometimes, I'm not a huge white noise person, but this kind of bridges the gap a little bit. What's amazing with this as well is you can create your own mixes. So when I go on my library, you'll see here that I have, is that going to load in? There you go. I have a few mixes that I have made. I can comfortably say I fall asleep so much quicker now. Often's the case where I'd plough through a ton of ASMR videos and still just wouldn't get to sleep unless I found that magical one, and they do exist. But I do find some nights that with Better Sleep, just the variety of sounds and how I can kind of tailor it to how I'm feeling that specific night has meant that I fall asleep easier and quicker. So to let Better Sleep help you fall asleep faster, you can use my link to try 7 days for free. That's trybettersleep.co/allsortsasmr. Thank you so much, Better Sleep, for being tonight's paid partner, and I hope you all enjoy this video. Okay, so our first fact is, in the early 20th century, a small town in Spain called Juscar painted all of its buildings blue as part of a promotional event for the Smurfs movie in 2011. It became so popular with tourists that residents voted to keep the blue permanently, rather than return to the traditional white-washed walls. The concept of a red carpet for honoured guests dates back to ancient Greece. In Aeschylus's play Agamemnon in 458 BC, a crimson path is laid out for the returning king, symbolising divine respect but also tempting who hubris. The inventor of dynamite, Alfred Nobel, established the Nobel Prizes after reading a mistaken obituary about himself, titled "The Merchant of Death is Dead." Disturbed by this legacy, he left most of his fortune to honour those who benefit humanity. Before rubber erasers, people commonly used bread. In the 1700s, artists and scholars kept pieces of crustless white bread that had been rolled and allowed to harden, which absorbed graphite quite easily. The Maneki Neko, or Japanese beckoning cat figurine, has different meanings depending on which paw is raised. The left paw attracts customers and people, while the right paw invites wealth and good fortune. There's a cave in Romania called Moville Cave that has been sealed off from the outside world for about 5.5 million years. Despite its toxic air and complete darkness, dozens of unique species evolved there, relying on chemosynthesis instead of photosynthesis. In Antarctica's McMurdo Dry Valleys, one of the driest places on Earth, there are areas where it hasn't rained or snowed in nearly 2 million years. The extreme dryness is due to katabatic winds that evaporate moisture before it can settle. The very first documented instance of someone making a hoax phone call was in 1884, less than a decade after the telephone's invention. Someone called the fire department to report a fake blaze, starting a trend that unfortunately still persists. In the 18th century, pineapple fruit became such a luxury symbol in Europe that people could rent a pineapple by the night to display at parties, rather than buy the expensive fruit outright. In medieval manuscripts, there are bizarre drawings known as marginalia, including snails fighting knights, rabbits jousting and dancing dragons. Scholars still debate whether these were satire, secret jokes, or commentary by bored scribes. The word alcohol comes from the Arabic al-ghul, originally meaning the fine powder used for iron liner, which is coal. It evolved to refer to the spirit distilled from substances, then narrowed to the intoxicating drink we know today. Ancient Romans used a plant called silphium as both a spice and a powerful contraceptive. It was so valuable that it appeared on coins and was harvested to extinction by the 1st century AD. The famous Rosetta Stone, which helped decipher Egyptian hieroglyphs, was actually discovered by accident in 1799 by French soldiers rebuilding a fort near the Egyptian town of Rosetta. Bats save US farmers an estimated $3 billion a year in pest control by consuming countless insects nightly. Without bats, food prices prices would likely be higher and crop damage much worse. The Forbidden City in Beijing has about 980 surviving buildings, but it was named so not because entry was truly forbidden, but because commoners needed imperial permission to enter its sacred spaces. In space, astronauts can't cry properly because tears don't flow downward. Instead, they form floating globules that can stick to the eye and blur vision until wiped away. In 1995, the city of San Francisco accidentally painted a street with a stripe of blue paint instead of the standard white or yellow due to a supplier delivering the wrong pigment. The city quietly fixed it after residents were puzzled. Should have left it, that's cool. The oldest known living land animal is Jonathan, a Seychelles giant tortoise living on St. Helena. Born around 1832, he's now over 190 years old, alive before the invention of the photograph. I feel like I might have seen something about Jonathan recently that he might have just become a dad again, potentially. That might be another old tortoise. When the Eiffel Tower was first built, many Parisians called it an eyesore. Writer Guy de Maupassant supposedly ate lunch there often, saying it was the only place in Paris where he didn't have to look at it. The ancient Greek philosopher Chrysippus is said to have died laughing at his own joke. I know that feeling. He saw a donkey eating figs, told a slave to give the donkey some wine to wash them down, and laughed so hard that he collapsed. There's a medieval punishment called trial by cake. In one version, a suspect had to eat a dry piece of bread and cheese. If they choked, they were guilty, but if they swallowed cleanly, they were innocent. Divine judgment at work. In deep sea trenches, there are fish that produce natural antifreeze proteins to prevent their blood from crystallizing, allowing them to survive at temperatures just above freezing. The scientific name for the western lowland gorilla is gorilla. Redundancy in Latin naming isn't uncommon, but this is among the most famous examples. Ancient Egyptian embalmers sometimes inserted onions into the eye sockets and body cavities of mummies, believing onions had spiritual power and symbolized eternal life. Newborn babies have a natural reflex called the Moro reflex. When startled, they throw out their arms and legs, a trait thought to help them cling to their mothers in prehistoric times. In the Middle Ages, illuminated manuscripts sometimes featured playful drolleries, tiny sketches of monks playing bagpipes on snails, or cats chasing bishops, revealing humour even in sacred texts. The Great Wall of China isn't a single wall, but a series of fortifications built over centuries. Some birds, like the Australian lyrebird, can mimic not only other bird calls, but chainsaws, camera shutters, and car alarms they hear around them in the forest. The sentence, "The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog," is called a pangram because it uses every letter of the English alphabet at least once. It was widely used to test typewriters and keyboards. In medieval Europe, people believed that putting a piece of bread on a sick person and then feeding it to a dog could transfer the illness to the animal, curing the human. In World War II, carrier pigeons delivered thousands of critical messages. One pigeon named Cher Amy saved an entire battalion by flying 25 miles, despite being wounded and blinded in one eye. Some desert beetles collect drinking water from fog by standing on their heads and letting condensation drip into their mouths, a behaviour adapted to extreme dryness. The Guinness World Record for the longest time balancing a running lawnmower on the chin is over 3 minutes. Like, why? You're just inviting some Final Destination Bloodlines type accident there. The ancient city of Petra in Jordan was carved directly into rose-coloured cliffs by the Nabateans over 2,000 years ago. Only a small portion is visible, with much of the city still underground. The Apollo astronauts' footprints on the moon could last millions of years, because there's no atmosphere or wind to erode them. The word salary comes from the Latin salarium, a payment to Roman soldiers partly to buy salt, which was highly valuable at the time. When whales die and sink to the ocean floor, they create whale-fall ecosystems, feeding deep-sea creatures for decades as the carcass slowly decays. The longest human neck on record belongs to women of the Kayan tribe in Myanmar, who wear brass coils to elongate their necks over time. The effect actually compresses the collarbone and ribs downward. The hottest inhabited place on Earth is Dalol in Ethiopia, where average annual temperatures hover around 34 degrees Celsius, with geothermal springs and acid pools colouring the landscape. The term deadline originated from the American Civil War. It referred to a line in prison camps that prisoners could not cross under penalty of being shot. Some butterfly species taste with their feet. Receptors help them sense whether a plant is suitable for laying eggs. Despite their fierce reputation, the majority of piranha species are primarily vegetarian or scavengers. Only a few have the famous sharp teeth feeding frenzy behaviour. In 1815, the eruption of Indonesia's Mount Tambora caused the year without a summer in Europe and North America, leading to crop failures, food shortages, and dark, eerie skies that inspired Mary Shelley to write Alexandria may have burned down over several centuries rather than in one great fire, with partial destruction during Julius Caesar's siege and later neglect. The oldest continuously operating hotel in the world is Nishiyama Onsen Goenkan in Japan. Founded in 705 AD, it has been run by the same family for over 50 generations. That is so cool. The Apollo 12 mission placed a small art piece on the moon, Fallen Astronaut, an aluminum sculpture commemorating astronauts and cosmonauts who died in space exploration. I hate that I just said aluminum, I just read it as it's written. It's aluminium, okay? The Iron Pillar of Delhi in India, made around the 4th century AD, has stood for over 1,600 years without significant rust, thanks to a protective oxide film. When threatened, bombardier beetles eject a boiling, noxious chemical spray from their abdomen, using an internal reaction chamber to superheat the liquid. The world's largest cave, Son Duong in Vietnam, has its own weather system, rainforest and clouds formed inside its enormous chambers. The term Bluetooth comes from Harald Bluetooth Gormson, a 10th century Danish king who united parts of Scandinavia, just as Bluetooth unites devices. The official sport of Maryland is jousting, a tradition dating back to colonial times and officially recognised in 1962. Female hyenas have a false penis called a pseudopenis, through which they give birth. This makes hyena births particularly dangerous and difficult. On the Pacific island of Yap, people historically used massive stone discs called ray stones as currency. Some are so large that they were never moved. Ownership simply changed by consensus when transactions occurred. The class delusion was a psychiatric disorder recorded in late medieval Europe, where individuals believed they were made of glass and would shatter if touched. Even royals like King Charles VI of France suffered from it. The Earth's rotation is very gradually slowing due to tidal forces from the moon. About 620 million years ago, a day lasted roughly 21.9 hours, and days keep lengthening by about 1.7 milliseconds per century. When you see a rainbow, someone standing directly opposite you, with the sun also behind them, would see a slightly different rainbow, because each observer's rainbow is centered on their own anti-solar point. In 1923, jockey Frank Hayes won a horse race at Belmont Park, despite dying of a heart attack mid-race. His body remained balanced on the horse, making him the only known deceased jockey to win. The fruit durian Southeast Asia, yet inside, the flesh is prized for its creamy almond custard-like flavour by many locals. Starfish don't have brains or blood. Instead, they use a water-vascular system that pumps seawater through their bodies to move and feed, coordinated by a simple nerve ring. In the 1800s, Napoleon Bonaparte was once attacked by a horde of rabbits during a hunting event. The rabbits, instead of running away, swarmed him, supposedly because they had been domesticated and expected food. The ancient city of Cahokia, which is in present-day Illinois, was once home to tens of thousands of people around 1100 AD, making it larger at the time than London. It's often called America's Lost City. There is a psychological phenomenon called Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, or frequency illusion, where after noticing something new, you start seeing it everywhere, simply because your attention is primed to notice it. I get that all the time. Unlike most mammals, camels have oval-shaped red blood cells. This adaptation allows their blood flow smoothly during extreme dehydration, when their blood becomes thicker. During Japan's Edo period, in 1603 to 1868, sumptuary laws restricted what colours and fabrics commoners could wear, yet clever merchants developed subtle but elaborate designs hidden in garment linings to express individuality. The Atlantic Ocean is growing by about 1 to 2 inches per year due to seafloor spreading along the mid-Atlantic ridge, while the Pacific Ocean is slowly shrinking. Thomas Jefferson invented a rotating book stand that could hold 5 open books at once, a practical tool reflecting his insatiable curiosity and love for reading multiple texts simultaneously. There are plants like the sensitive plant Mimosa pudica, whose leaves fold up when touched. This reaction deters herbivores and prevents damage from heavy rain. The city of Venice slowly sinks by about 1 to 2 millimeters per year, due to both natural subsidence and human factors. Its iconic buildings stand on millions of wooden piles driven into marshy ground centuries ago. The oldest known musical instrument is a 40,000-year-old flute made from the wing bone of a griffon vulture, found in a cave in Germany. In 17th century England, pineapple houses were built. These were heated greenhouses designed specifically to grow this rare and status symbol fruit in the cold climate. The immortal jellyfish, or Turritopsis dawni, can theoretically revert to its earlier life stage after reaching maturity, potentially allowing it to bypass death under certain conditions. Albert Einstein was offered the presidency of Israel in 1952 after its first president died. He respectfully declined, saying he lacked the natural aptitude and experience for political leadership. In ancient China, the compass was first used not for navigation, but for harmonizing buildings and cities, according to Feng Shui principles, ensuring proper alignment and cosmic forces. Octopuses have 3 hearts. 2 pump blood through the gills, and the third pumps it through the rest of the body. When an octopus swims, the main heart stops, which is why they prefer to crawl rather than swim. In the early 20th century, radium girls were factory workers who painted watch dials with radium-based paint, unknowingly poisoning themselves when they used their lips to shape paintbrush tips. Their struggle led to improved workplace safety standards. The city of Istanbul is the only city in the world that spans 2 continents, Europe and Asia, separated by the Bosphorus Strait. The human nose can detect 1 trillion different scents, according to a 2014 study, though scientists still debate how many we can consciously distinguish. The word penguin was originally used for the now extinct great auk, a large flightless bird of the North Atlantic, before being applied to the southern hemisphere birds we know today. In the Andes, people chew cocoa leaves, or coca leaves. Oh, a source of cocaine, so not cocoa leaves, coca leaves. Source of cocaine for mild stimulation and to combat altitude sickness. When chewed traditionally, the effect is gentle, unlike the purified drug. The aurora borealis, or northern lights, occurs when charged solar particles collide with gases in Earth's atmosphere, causing them to glow. Different gases create different colours. Oxygen often produces green and red, while nitrogen can give purples and blues. In 19th century Britain, wealthy families often hired sin eaters, individuals who, by consuming bread placed on a corpse, symbolically took on the deceased sins to ease their passage to the afterlife. That's the same principle as the illness thing earlier. What is it with bread? The deepest part of the ocean, the Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench, is about 36,000 feet deep. So deep, it could submerge Mount Everest with more than a mile of water above it. That's insane. Ancient Romans used powdered mouse brains as toothpaste, and also mixed crushed bones and oyster shells into dental pastes to whiten their teeth. Before alarm clocks, people in Britain and Ireland sometimes relied on knocker-uppers, workers who tapped on windows with long sticks to wake customers at the right time. A baby puffin is called a puffling. Once fledged young bufflings leave the burrow at night and head straight to the sea, often not returning to land for several years. During the Great Emu War of 1932 in Australia, soldiers armed with machine guns attempted to cull emu populations, damaging crops, and lost, as the birds proved too elusive and resilient. We've got a full dedicated video about that on the channel, go check that out after. Saturn's largest moon is called Titan, which has lakes and rivers of liquid methane and ethane, making it the only known place in the solar system besides Earth with stable surface liquids. The ancient city of Teotihuacan in Mexico was abandoned centuries before the Aztecs discovered it. The Aztecs named it Teotihuacan, meaning the place where gods were born. The fastest growing plant on Earth is certain species of bamboo, which can grow up to 35 inches in a single day under ideal conditions. Seahorses are among the only animal species where males carry and give birth to the young. They have a specialized pouch where females deposit eggs, which the male fertilizes and later releases as tiny seahorses. The word robot comes from the Czech word robota, meaning forced labor or drudgery. It was first used in Karel Capek's 1920 play Rossum's Universal Robot. Honey, found in ancient Egyptian tombs, thousands of years old, was still perfectly edible. Honey's low moisture content and natural acidity made it one of the only foods that never spoils. During World War II, British spies created exploding chocolate bars to assassinate Nazi officials. These disguised bombs had a small amount of explosive hidden under the chocolate, which would detonate when a piece was broken off. Platypuses don't have stomachs in the traditional sense. Their esophagus connects directly to their intestines. Over evolutionary time, they lost the genes needed to produce stomach acid. Ancient Egyptians worshipped over 2,000 deities. Many of these gods blended human and animal forms, symbolizing natural forces, professions, and concepts like truth, music, and even drunkenness. In the late 1800s, some US towns hired professional snake oil salesmen who traveled with medicine shows, using magic tricks and scripted testimonials to sell fake cures, giving rise to the term snake oil. There's a valley in Antarctica called the Blood Falls, where iron-rich, salty water oxidizes when it meets the air, staining the ice a vivid red like flowing blood. The Devil's Kettle Minnesota splits into two streams. One follows a normal path and the other plunges into a hole whose exit puzzled scientists for decades before dye tests finally traced it to an underground river. Many medieval castles had spiral staircases built clockwise when viewed from the bottom. This design favoured right-handed defenders coming down, who could swing swords freely, while attackers coming up found their sword arm cramped by the central pillar. The ancient city of Carthage, Rome's great rival, was destroyed in 146 BC. According to legend, though debated by historians, Romans salted the earth so nothing could grow there again, symbolizing total defeat. Bioluminescent waves. Bioluminescent is a good ASMR word. Bioluminescent waves sometimes light up beaches when disturbed at night, thanks to microscopic plankton called dinoflagellatus. These natural light shows are best seen in warm coastal waters after calm, sunny days. Scientists have discovered microbes living inside rocks deep below Earth's crust, surviving on chemical reactions rather than sunlight, hinting at how life could exist on other planets. In medieval Europe, people sometimes believed that a rooster could lay an egg. If this cock egg hatched, it was thought to produce a basilisk, a mythical serpent that could kill with a glance. Charles Dickens had a pet raven called Grip, who inspired the character in Barnaby Rudge. After its death, Dickens had it stuffed, and it is now on display at the Free Library of Philadelphia. Some butterflies, like the glasswing or Greta Otto, have transparent wings. Their microscopic wings scales scatter almost no light, making them nearly invisible among forest shadows. In the 17th century, witch bottles were buried under houses in England and America. Filled with nails, pins, and sometimes urine, they were meant to trap and neutralize harmful magic. The Amazon rainforest is so vast that it produces 20% of the world's fresh oxygen. Its dense canopy also creates its own rain by releasing moisture back into the atmosphere. Genghis Khan's real name was Temujin. Genghis is a title roughly meaning universal ruler. Despite his fearsome reputation, he established a postal system and laws that promoted trade and communication across Asia. The human stomach gets a completely new lining every few days to protect itself from being digested by its own powerful acids. The world's longest living animal is a deep-sea clam known as Ming, which was 507 years old when scientists accidentally killed it while studying it in 2006. Oh, you'd feel awful, wouldn't you? following Aphrodite's victory in the Judgment of Paris. Scholars have pieced this together from fragments and ancient copies. The pink lakes of Australia, like Lake Hillier, get their colour from salt-loving algae and bacteria that produce carotenoid pigments similar to those in carrots. Cleopatra lived closer in time to the invention of the iPhone than to the building of the Great Pyramid of Giza. I love that fact. It's one of my favourite facts. Some whales can communicate using low-frequency sounds that travel thousands of miles across oceans, creating what scientists call a whale song highway. The Great Fire of London in 1666 destroyed 13,000 houses, but officially killed only 6 people, though historians suspect the real death toll was much higher and undocumented. In Norse mythology, the god Odin gave up one of his eyes in exchange for wisdom from the Well of Mimir, symbolising the sacrifice needed for knowledge. The quokka, an Australian marsupial, is known as the world's happiest animal due to its permanent smile. It has few natural predators, which partly explains its fearless and friendly demeanour. I love that. Honey badgers have such loose skin that if a predator bites them, they can twist around inside their skin and bite back. During the Middle Ages, some European cities had cathedra pestis or plague chairs, where people infected with plague were made to sit, believing the chair itself could draw out the illness. In space, metal can weld together without heat in a process called cold welding. With no oxygen or other contaminants, clean metal surfaces bond instantly when they touch. Ancient Roman gladiators rarely fought to the death. They were expensive to train and often spared after a good fight, sometimes even receiving gifts and fame. Before watches were widespread, European churches kept canonical sundials carved into stone walls to show when to ring bells for prayers. The French writer Marcel Proust famously wrote much of his 3,000-page novel In Search of Lost Time while lying in bed, often on sheets of paper pinned to the wall. Some frogs can survive being frozen solid in winter by producing natural antifreeze compounds. When they thaw in spring, their heart starts beating again. The first postage stamp, the penny black, was issued in Britain in 1840. It featured Queen Victoria and revolutionised mail by standardising payment. During the Victorian era, post-mortem photography was common. Families posed with deceased loved ones, sometimes painting open eyes on the photographs to create a lifelike appearance. There are some of those out there, close to raccoons and weasels than to bears. A single teaspoon of soil can contain more living organisms, bacteria, fungi and tiny insects than there are humans on Earth. The Rosetta Stone was written in 3 scripts: Greek, Demotic and hieroglyphics, so that priests, government officials and rulers could all read the decree. To conserve metal during World War II, US pennies were made of steel coated in zinc in 1943. They looked silver rather than copper, and sometimes confused people as dimes. Some deep-sea fish have evolved transparent heads. This adaptation lets them see prey above them through specialized barrel-shaped eyes, shielded by a dome. The idiom "mad as a hatter" came from hat makers who suffered mercury poisoning while treating felt, leading to tremors, speech problems and mood changes. That is dark. The name kangaroo allegedly comes from a misunderstanding. Early English explorers asked local Aboriginal people what the animal was called, and they answered "Ganguru," meaning "I don't understand you," though this story is heavily debated. The Basilica di Santa Maria del Fiore in Florence has a massive brick dome engineered by Filippo Brunelleschi in the 15th century, built without modern scaffolding and still standing strong. The common swift can stay airborne for up to 10 months straight, eating, sleeping and even mating on the wing before returning to land to nest. In medieval bestiaries, the unicorn symbolized purity and could only be tamed by a virgin maiden, a legend used to represent Christ in Christian allegory. That kind of idea was covered in the movie Death of a Unicorn, which came out this year and I actually really enjoyed. Archaeologists have found 5,000-year-old chewing gum made from birch bark tar in Scandinavia, complete with preserved tooth marks, offering DNA clues about ancient humans. Next up, sorry, gotta scroll up. Come on, long pause, yes. Spaghetto, confetto, and graffito are the singular forms of spaghetti, confetti, and graffiti. So what one spaghetto is actually what that's called, when you've just got one piece. The first ever email was sent by Ray Tomlinson to himself. A violin contains about 70 separate pieces of wood. The scientific name for brain freeze is, I've got to give this a go, sphenopalatine ganglioneuralgia. Oh, actually, it's not too bad. Sphenopalatine ganglioneuralgia. There you go, that's brain freeze. The first VCR, made in the size of a piano. Giraffe tongues are about 18 to 20 inches long and dark coloured to avoid sunburn. The opposite side of a die always add up to 7. The @ symbol, the one found in an email, is officially called an aspirand or an aspirand. Blue whales have hearts the size of small cars. Charles Dickens carried a navigational compass to combat his sense of direction. Bubble wrap was originally invented as wallpaper. In the Philippines, there's an island within a lake on an island within a lake on an island. In Japan, there are crying sumo contests where sumo wrestlers compete to make babies cry. Is that a sport? I don't know, let's get it in the Olympics, that sounds great. Gold medal in making an infant cry. The largest snow maze is in Manitoba in Canada. The shortest complete sentence in English is go. The last execution by guillotine in France was in 1977. Yeah, I think a fact that I've said in a previous video similar to the Cleopatra one is France was still using the guillotine as punishment when the first Star Wars movie came out. The national sport of Bhutan is archery. Apples float because 25% of their volume is air. A group of owls is called a parliament. Tigers have antiseptic saliva that helps to clean wounds. There are more public libraries in the US than McDonald's restaurants. Is that true? That wasn't a dig, by the way, at Americans. The inventor of the lava lamp was a British accountant named Edward Craven Walker. A snail can sleep for up to 3 years. One strand of spider silk is thinner than human hair, but 5 times stronger than steel. That's gotta be like relative, right? Surely. Let's find a good one to finish with. We're gonna finish with one about my favourite animal, penguins. Penguins propose with pebbles. Male penguins gift females with a special stone. And that's why, simply put, they're the best animal on the planet. But my friends, if my timing is correct, that should be 1 hour of whispered random facts. My back is killing. Although, having said that, I did slightly slyly split this up into 2 recording sessions, so hopefully you didn't notice, but I've just exposed myself anyway. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you learned something new. There were definitely some facts in there that I had never known. We're at the point where there's always going to be repetitions here and there, but for the most part I think there were new facts. Obviously, always take with a pinch of salt. I do try to fact check as many as I can. But that is going to do it for tonight's video. I really hope you did enjoy it, as my throat makes a lovely noise